Hi everyone, Sheree here. Today I am creating a spread for my December album, for my 2016 December album actually. I still haven't finished that album, and since this video will be going up on the Felicity Jane blog on Christmas Eve this year, obviously I don't have my Christmas Eve photos as yet for this December. So I've decided to go ahead and create this spread for my 2016 album. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my photos already chosen and they're printed out and put into place there. I've got my journaling printed out onto some plain white cardstock as well. I have already slipped this journal, well, the filler card, it's from Felicity Jane as well. I've already slipped that one into there. But what I really want to do is create a page that goes over the top of that, and I want it to be looked through. So that's where these awesome cardstock dividers come in. These are in the Holly kit this year, and I could just use it like that. However, I wouldn't have that transparency through those holes, and I really wanted to create a page that you could see through and turn over, and there'd be something on the back as well. So what I've done is chosen some pattern paper from the kit, and I've created my own little backing page so that as you turn the page over, there's going to be pattern paper, and I plan on putting some transparency pieces in between those two layers so that I can then attach some pieces to each of these circular holes. For example, I could put, well, here's a little heart there, so I could put a heart there and you can still see through to the pages underneath. Alright, so I thought I would just show you how I did it. I did run into a couple of problems as I was creating that backing page, so I thought I'd quickly just run through what I did to create the page so that it fit really well. So what I did, I'm going to demonstrate it on just some plain computer paper, only because it's a bit hard for you to see when I draw onto the pattern paper with this pencil. So I found that when I traced around the holes with a normal pencil, it didn't quite get to the very edge of the circle, so that when I actually cut it out, I'll just show you, you could still see the pattern paper underneath because the circles just weren't quite big enough, and it was just too hard to go back and try and trim that down a little bit. You could still see that pattern paper showing through, and I didn't want that. I didn't want that look that you could still see that hint of pattern there. So I worked out that the best pencil to use was one of these click pencils. So you might know them as a Pacer pencil, a Bic click pencil, whatever, but we've all seen these. We used to use them at school and we loved them. So because I've got that really sharp point on the end, I found that was the best way to go. So what I did, I know I'm going to have the page like that, so I just flipped it over and just traced around the very inside of each circle, making sure I went right to the very edge of the circle with this pencil. So I went round each one. And I also just traced around the outside, just so that I had an idea of where the edges of the page are going to be. Okay, it doesn't have to be all the way, but it gives you an idea. You could also, trace the little circles in here. I've just knocked it out a bit. Get that back in place. So, you could also go down there, and that would give you an idea of where to punch your holes later. Alright, so once I had that traced, I then had to decide how I was going to cut these circles out. So after a bit of trial and error, I was originally going to use this paper. I really wanted the buffalo check to be on the back of that, so that when you turn the page you could see that really beautiful buffalo check. However, it just didn't work for me because of it was the first time I cut it out, and I had used this pencil, so the circles weren't quite right. And I also started off by using my blade to run around. I had a glass mat underneath, and I used the blade to cut out this first circle, and I'm not sure if you can see, but it was really rough. It had a really rough outline. It just didn't work at all. So then I started off using some really sharp scissors. So to do that, all I did was poked a hole right through the middle, and then I just cut pieces like this. Just cut some lines all the way around, almost to the edge, just so that I had this sort of thing going on. And that just made it much easier to cut around the edge. And now when I cut, I really tried to stay just on the very outside edge of that line. So I'm virtually on the line, but sort of towards the outside edge of that pencil mark. And I really took my time cutting this out. You know, I actually used my other really super sharp scissors, and I just cut around each of those circles, and also cut the page out with my trimmer. I did leave a little bit extra room around the edge of it when I cut it out, and this was the result. So I now have this polka dot piece. You might be able to see it still has the pencil marks here, but I found that it fit my cardstock divider really well, so I was quite happy with how that turned out. So you can see there, if I turn it over, when I have it placed exactly on those circles, you really can't see much of the paper underneath. And what I'm planning on doing is I've got my transparency pieces here. I want to make one like a shaker pocket because I've got the star confetti. This is Felicity Jane star confetti, but I've also got a few other larger stars to add into it, and I want to have like a little shaker pocket in that particular circle. So I'll have 2 layers of transparency just in that circle. So I'll have one on the back and then put the stars in between, have one on top, and then the other circles will just have 1 piece of transparency in each. So anyway, I hope that all made sense. If you've got any questions about that, please just ask me in the comments below. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and make a start on putting this page together. I'm still trying to decide whether I want to try sewing around each circle with my sewing machine. It could end up an absolute mess, but we'll see how I go with that. I may change my mind, but I think it would just add some really nice texture. Even if I stitch around it a couple of times on each circle, it would look a bit messy, but it would add texture to this page. Alright, I'll pop you on fast forward to do the rest, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so to start off with, I need to adhere the transparency piece to the back of that cardstock divider. So I'm just going right around the very edge with some thin double-sided tape, going down the center as well. So I'll just remove those backing pieces, and then I can adhere that down into place. Okay, so that's gone on there now. And now I'm going to work on that little shaker window that I want to put up in that top left-hand corner on that first page. So I'm just going to add little strips of double-sided tape all around the outside edge of that circle, and that's going to help keep my little stars inside that circle so that they don't fall down inside that page. So now that that's done, I can add the stars to the center of that. I'm just getting rid of some marks on my table because I didn't want any marks going onto that white cardstock. So the stars can go in the middle there, just a few, and they're the Felicity Jane star confetti. And then I'm just going to add some larger stars from my stash. So I think that's all I need. So now I'm just going to remove those little backing pieces, and then I've got another piece of transparency already cut to size, which I can just stick straight over the top of that. So just making sure it's stuck down nicely. And then I've got my little shaker window. So I'm really liking how that looks so far. So now I can put the backing onto this cardstock divider. So once again, I've got my double-sided tape out, and I'm going right around the outside edge. I'll also go down the center, another one down that other side there, and I will put a couple of strips across the middle as well, just so that when I stick this on, it's stuck down really well. So to begin with, I'm just going to remove the backing on one strip, and it did take me a little bit of fiddling around just to make sure I got it exactly on the place that I wanted. So once I was happy with the placement, I then went ahead and removed all the rest of the backing pieces, and then I can just stick that page down and it's exactly where I want it. Okay, so that's now done. Just having a little look there, making sure it's all good. And now I'm just playing around with what I'd like to add to the center of each of these circles. So I've got those gold foil numbers from the Holly kit and some other little die cuts and other little bits and pieces as well. So I've got the felt star there in one of the circles. I've got that circular Let's Stay Home die cut, a tree in the top right, but I've decided I wanted to add some stitching around each of the circles. So it did take me a little while, but I was really happy with how this turned out, and it's really added some nice texture to the front and back of this page. So now that the stitching's done, I did add a border around the very edge as well. I can now go ahead and start sticking all these little pieces down in my circles. So just got that circular die cut there. Then I've got the tree in the top right hand corner. And then I'll go ahead and stick that heart down as well. Now before I do the star and the number 24, I'm going to flip it over and just cover up the double-sided tape that you can see on the other side with more die cuts. So I've got another circular piece that says cozy, and it's exactly the same size, so fits straight over the back of the other one. I've got another tree which I'm putting in the top left hand corner. Nice little green tree there. And then I've got a heart for that bottom right, and I love that it's adding a little bit of red to that page because the photos that will be on the other side of this page do have a lot of red and actually green as well in them. So I love that it's introducing a little bit of red on that side. So just making sure everything's lined up properly so you're not seeing it from the other side. And then I can go ahead and attach this felt star. So I wanted it stapled in the middle, but it did move around a little bit, so it was a bit fiddly to get on there. But in the end I do get that stuck down, and I add a second staple as well. Now you do see the staples on the other side of this page, and you will see that I cover that up very shortly. So to stick the numbers down, I'm actually using some tiny glue dots, so it wasn't quite as messy on the other side because the back of these numbers won't be covered. So I thought the glue dots would be a little bit neater than some random pieces of double-sided tape. So everything's stuck down now, so I'm just going to trim off a little bit of pattern paper on the very bottom because you can see that pattern paper from the other side. I was going to trim it right down so that you couldn't see any of that overhang of the pattern paper, but I actually liked how it looked, so for now I've got that overhang. And you just saw I added an epoxy circle to the back of that felt star. So I was going to use my 6-hole punch to punch the holes, but it was a little bit tight getting it in there, so I've just reached for my power punch and I'm just going along using the cardstock divider as a guide to punch those holes. So that's now done, and my first page is complete. So now I can start working on these pocket pages. So I've got our photos from Christmas Eve, and I thought I would introduce another one of those felt stars on this side of the spread. So I'm just going to attach it directly to the page protector, so I'm just using my stapler again. So I quite like how that looks just on top of the photo there. And now I'm just deciding what to do with this journaling card. So I have a little look through my stamps and things, and I do turn the camera off while I decide what to do. Alright, so in the end I've decided to use some stamps from the Joy stamp set, which was from last year. And for this journaling card I've chosen the words Be Merry, and I'm using a glitter embossing powder for this. So just making sure I get good coverage there. Getting rid of any excess powder before I use the heat tool. And I do put this aside and do another little bit of stamping before using my heat tool so that I can do them both at the same time. This one says Family Time, and it's from the same Joy stamp set. And I'm planning on cutting this one out and adding it to the bottom of my 6x4 photo. So just get rid of that excess powder back into the jar. that I can get that one out the way so I don't spill it everywhere. Alright, so now I can grab my heat tool and watch the transformation. So just trying not to burn my fingers there because it is quite hot. Just trying to get it to focus and show you how pretty it looks. So I've got that lovely shine and shimmer now. So moving on to the Be Merry card, I did notice a little bit of excess powder, so I'm just getting that off before I use the heat tool. So I'm sorry, it does have a little bit of trouble focusing on this, but I will try and give you a closer look. A little bit tricky, but you get the idea. It's got that lovely shine to it now. Alright, so I can get rid of my heat tool now and finish off this journaling card. So I've got some diagonal striped Felicity Jane paper going across the very top there. And I've got another piece of journaling which is going on the back of this pocket page. It's just the second half of this Christmas Eve spread. And I'm cutting out that family time piece as well. Alright. So I've just added a little bit of stitching across the top of the Be Merry card, and I've also stitched a border around that other journaling card as well. So to finish off this Be Merry card, I'm just adding the date down below. So that can now go back into the pocket. I've got that family time phrase that I'm going to just adhere to the bottom of the photo, and I do add some stitching to that as well. Just adding a little bit more stitching to that side of the page. Alright, so that's now done, and it can go back inside the pocket too. So flipping over now, you can see this is the other side of the pocket page, and it's more photos from Christmas Eve. So I already had that filler card in that top right hand corner, so now I'm working on the journaling card that goes to the bottom left. So I've just added a little bit of that scalloped washi across the very top and trimming that one down just a little bit. And then I decide just to move it up a bit as well, just to cover the stitching along the top of that border. And to finish this one off, I'm just going to add another little epoxy piece to the very bottom of that. And then I can add them to the back of that 6x4 photo. I'm adhering them down into place so that they don't float around in that pocket. So that photo going on there now. And this top pocket as well is 6x4, and because all of these cards are 4x3, I'm going to end up just getting some spare cardstock, and I'll adhere all of these cards onto the strip of cardstock so that they don't move around in the pocket as well. So you can see there, it's just a scrap piece. It doesn't have to be 6x4 so long as it stretches across the length of both photos. So I'm just adhering the other ones to the back now, and then I can trim off the excess, and that one is ready to go back in the pocket as well. And that completes this Christmas Eve spread for my album. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing how this has come together today. Let me know if you've got any questions. Just pop it in the comments down below and I'll go back to you as soon as I can. And I'll be back again soon to share another project with you. So Merry Christmas everyone. I hope you're having a lovely one with your family and friends, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.